Now, one good thing about the LED is many monitors and television screens are now being advertised as LED, when in fact they are your LCD screens, but they have a backlight. The backlight uses what we call LED. Now, let's talk about the LCD screens, okay? Now, they are made up of what we call the tiny liquid crystals, okay? They make up of an array of pixels which are affected by changes in the applied electric field. How this works is outside the scope of this book, so we're not even going to talk about it as physics, right? And advanced IT. But what you need to understand about the LCDs is modern LCD screens are backlit, right? Using the LED technology, of course, and must not be confused with the pure LED screens. When LEDs are used, there's a matrix of a tiny blue-white LEDs is used behind the LCD screens. Okay, now one cool thing about this is you don't have to kill yourself about all the rest. Of course, before the use of the LED and the LCD screens, we use what we call a cold catofluorescent lamp, right, as the backlighting method, right, before it was now changed to a LED as the backlighting. Now, the LED reaches their maximum brightness almost immediately, so there's no need to warm up before reaching full efficiency. Okay, this is a good example of what I'm talking about, right? You can see the backlight right there with the LED of different colors, and that makes the brightness, the contrast of your TV to be of optimal display. The LED gives a whiter light which sharpens the image and makes the color appear more vivid. Um, the LED produces a brighter light which improves color definition. Screens using LED technology are more thinner than screens using CFL, right? And if you wonder what they are, I just said it right here. They are the cold cathode fluorescent lamp. LED lasts almost indefinitely. This makes technology more reliable, makes for a more consistent product. LED consume very little power, which means they produce less heat as well as using the less energy. Now, quickly, let's talk about the uses. They're used as output devices, which is for most modern computers. Many LCD screens offer a touch screen input. You could touch on them like this. Mobile phones, tablets, laptops, portable video games all use the LCD screens. Advantage is very efficient, low power consumption, lightweight. Um, Unlike the CRT, they don't suffer from screen burning. Um, Screens can be made in large variations of sizes. Do not suffer from a flickering screen, unlike we had in CRT. Very sharp image resolutions, produce low electromagnetic field compared to the CRT monitors. Okay. Disadvantage on the other hand could be color and construct from various viewing angle can be inconsistent, unlike the CRT that you can actually view from various angles. Motion blur is somewhat a common issue. Okay. um there's a low construct than CRT monitor because it's harder to produce a deep rich level of black. Okay. LEDs can have weak or stuck pixels which are permanently on or off. Okay. The LCD panels may not be uniformly illuminated by the backlight. Okay. All right. Let's talk about the touch screens. Touch screens, we're looking at it as an output device. Okay. Now, this is one of the few devices that can be used in this way. Okay. When options appears on the screen, for example, a food selection at a fast food outlet, a user can make selection by touching the screen. Now, this is input. We've talked about that as an input. Another set of options then appears on the screen, such as choosing another drink, This is the output produced based on the previous input. Okay. Now, uses of the touchscreen is acting as both input and output. Okay, so we're looking at it uses both as an input and output is your smartphones and tablet. Okay, which allows you to interact with applications. ATMs at bank, where the screen option display depends on the previous input. Ticket collection machines at theater, cinemas, and railway stations. Information kiosks at mosques or an art galleries. Okay, so you can actually use the touch screens in this platforms. Now, advantages could be a faster entry of options using a keyboard or a mouse. It's very fast. Very easy method for choosing options. You don't have to get a keyboard to choose. It's quite easy. It's a user-friendly method. It simply means that there's no training involved. All you have to do, you want to print, you click here, and then you print. You don't have to get a keyboard to scroll your touchpad or to do this. No, no, no. You don't have to do that. Okay. Options to expand the size of display if necessary. There's that option to do that. However, disadvantage is there's a limited number of options available for you to do. Not very good if large amount of data are being imputed or output being output because they are not very accurate and the interface is not fast. The screen can get very dirty. That has to be part of the thing that comes to mind. Okay, when there's that constant touching. Okay, giving the risks of reducing its responsiveness and making it difficult to read in strong sunlight. Easier for a third party to track user interaction, which is a security risk. Okay, credit card details, etc., etc. Okay, now I want to believe you understood all this, but just in case you don't, please you can always pause back and go back and come back again and to get more understanding on that. Okay. Multimedia projectors. I want to believe you guys have seen a projector, right? So the projector receives signals that can be either analog or digital in nature. Okay. Now, what this simply means is the signal source is usually from a computer, probably from a television or a DVD player. Now, the image from the source is then magnified and projected onto a large screen. The devices work with a remote control that acts like a cordless mouse. So that's a remote control that's like a cordless mouse when interfacing with the screen. Now it is possible to direct the computer presentation without being tied to a computer. Okay. Now let's talk about the uses. You can use the projector when you're training, making presentations on training on various things. You can use it for advertising, right? Showing your product features. Home cinemas, they make use of projectors, right? Projecting the image from DVDs or televisions. Advantages of multimedia projectors enable many people to see a presentation rather than crowding around a small computer screen. Avoid the need for several network computers. Okay, when looking at a video clip or an internet site. Okay, so everybody can see what is on the large screen, right? Rather than just logging in and you're networking all the computers. Disadvantage on the other hand is images can be fuzzy sometimes, so you have to adjust it, right? It can be fuzzy, a little bit blurry, it can be fuzzy, so you have to adjust it. But it's a disadvantage if you want to look at it. And projectors are not easy to buy; they are expensive, and setting up a projector can be a little bit difficult. Okay, you have to set it up depending on where you want to place it, depending on where you want to place it. Okay, let's talk about printers. Now, this section covers. So we have the laser printers, inkjet printers, the dot matrix printer. I'm just going to just compare the three of them, and because usually questions they come on advantage between one over the other. But the first thing you need to understand about laser printer is that they can produce a very high quality hard copy output. Okay, they are very quick and in producing large numbers of pages. Okay, and they also rely on what we call a large buffer memory, where data for the whole document is stored before pages can be printed out. Okay. Another thing is the use of printers. They can be used. The laser printers are used where low noise is required. If fast, high quality, high volume printing is required, then the laser printers are the best options. Okay, printing is fast. That's an advantage for the laser printer. Printing is fast. Okay, in which case they are very little. In which case they are a little faster than the inkjet printers. Okay, they can handle very large print jobs. The qualities is consistently high. Okay, the toner cartridge they use lasts for a long time. Okay, and yes, they can be cost effective. Okay, especially if color options are not required. But if color options are required, then they are very costly. Disadvantage is that only really fast if several copies are being made. Okay, if you're printing one, you're not really enjoy. But if it's fast copies, this is usually for printing fast copies. Color laser printer tend to be expensive too. I've talked about it as well. They produce ozone and volatile organic compounds because of their method of printing. The inkjet printers, which is more like a home use printer, they produce good quality hard copies, right? Unlike the laser printers, right? They don't have large buffer memories. Therefore, printing is done one bit at a time. In terms of quality, printing, your inkjet printers is better than laser printers. Okay, it's better than the laser printers. Okay. Another thing is printing. Like I said, printing is done one at a time. Okay, that's why printing is sometimes paused. The whole print job cannot be stored in the buffer. It has to wait for the computer to send in more data. Okay. Now, they are based on different technologies, the thermal bubble and the piezoelectric. Okay, the use of the inkjet printers is that they use where low output volumes are required. Okay, they don't print high volumes. Okay, and this is because of the ink cartridge. Okay, it's tend to be what used up very quickly. If high printing is required for a single page, then these printers are ideal. You want a high printing for a single page, right? A color printing, it has the photo quality. The inkjet printer is probably your best bet. Okay. The 3D inkjet printers are now being used in industry to produce prototypes. Okay, we're going to look at that as well. Okay. Now, advantages of the inkjet printers is high quality output, cheaper to buy than the laser printers. They are home use. They are very lightweight and have a small physical blueprint. Do not produce the ozone or volatile organic compounds. Disadvantage is that it slows output if several copies are needed, so it's not ideal for printing large copies. Cannot do large printing jobs. Printing can smog if the user is not careful, so you have to be very careful when you're printing. Okay, it can be expensive if used a lot. Talking about getting the inkjet cartridge, right? Another one is the dot matrix printer. Okay, where the print head is made up of what? Um, okay, is made up of your matrix of pins, right? It's pressed against an ink ribbon. Okay, now they tend to be slow, noisy, and output is not good compared to the inkjet and laser printer. You need to know the difference. Okay, they tend to be slow, noisy, and output is not good compared to the inkjet and laser printer. They are still useful, however, they are multi-part stationaries, all right, rules of papers, okay, that are being used. They work well in dirty atmosphere, such as factory floors, unlike your inkjet or laser printers. Okay, they can be used in a noisy or dirty environment where the print quality is not that important. Um, they are used in applications where multi-part stationaries or the fact that they are impact printers is of value. Still widely used in steel receipts. Okay. Okay, they are used in environment where which will be a problem for laser or inkjet printers. Okay, they can be used in that environment. That, for example, it's a dusty or dense environment, moist atmosphere is fine. Carbon copies or multi-part outputs can be produced, very cheap to run and maintain, and again easy to use if continuous stationary is required. Disadvantage on the other hand is noisy. It costs more than the inkjet printers to buy initially. It's very slow and it has a poor printing quality. The next one is the plotter, right? It's an output device. They print on paper. They work very differently to printers. Instead of toners or ink cartridge, plotters use what we call a pen, pencil, or marker to draw multiple lines rather than a series of dots like the printers. Now, the size of the paper can be anything from A4 to 7 meters. They can produce what we call the vector graphic drawing and have to use the conjunction with your card or your cam. Now, another thing is, one good use about the plotters is they are used for producing architectural drawings, engineering drawings, drawing animation characters. Okay, now they have very high quality output. They're able to produce high monochrome and color drawing to a high accuracy. Okay, um, able to print on varieties of, they can print on a lot of materials. They can print on cardboard, aluminium, plastic, steel, wood. That is the good thing about this printer. Unlike other printers that makes it just paper, they can print on anything. Okay, and disadvantage is that it is slow at printing. It takes time in printing. All right, this is expensive. Okay, equipment to purchase. Okay, although the running costs are low once purchased, but it's expensive to purchase, the initial cost. They have a very large physical footprint compared to a printer. Now, the next one is the 3D printers. Now, the 3D printers are primarily used in the computer aided design applications. Okay, and they are primarily used with the inkjet and laser technology, and they produce solid image that can actually work. Okay, they print out prototypes. Okay, and this object is built layer by layer using materials such as a lot of paper, ceramic, a lot of things to do that. um Now let's talk about the uses of these 3D printers. Now, the use of the 3D printers is okay. Just a quick one. um we have different kinds of the 3D printers. We have the direct 3D printers that uses the inkjet technologies. A print head can move from left to right as in a normal printer. Okay. We have the binder 3D printer, right, which is the two passes for each of the layer. The first pass way dries powder, and then the rest. Okay. Um, Although this is best explained using a video. Okay, and probably for my students, I'm just going to drop a copy of a link of the video on the 3D printer so you can see this as it's working in real time. Now, uses is um, for prosthetic limb can be made to fit exactly on the injured body part, making items to allow precision reconstructive surgery. In aerospace, manufacturers are looking at making wings and other airplane parts using 3D printers. Okay, the bonus will be lightweight. Okay, precision parts, making parts for items that is no longer in production. Right, it's very, the 3D printers can actually do that. Okay, and now there are steps on how a 3D printers can be created. Right, the design is made using the computer aided design software. The next one is the finalized drawing is imported into some special software that prepares in a format that's understood by the 3D printer. The 3D printer sets up to allow the solid object to be made. The solid object is built up layer by layer. Okay. Then advantages of the 3D printers. Let's talk about it. manufacturers of items have become easier than before. Okay, the 3D printer can manufacture items relatively quickly. Even though the cost of the 3D printer is high, it is less when compared to labor cost. Okay, medical benefits are emerging. Prosthetic limb, organs, they can be used for that. Part of machineries that are no longer made can now be manufactured using the 3D printers. Okay. Disadvantage is that the biggest possible drawback is the potential to make a counterfeit item that infringes others' copyrights. Now, this is a possibility because you can make other items of people's design even when you are not allowed to do that. Okay, all technologies are now in the hands of the wrong people, which can be led to a dangerous or illegal activities. The 3D can actually produce gun, right? And this cannot be detected with the scans, and they can actually use it to harm people. Now, there's a potential of job losses if this technology takes over some types of manufacturing, because now it will be doing the work that the labor humans were actually doing, thereby causing a form of unemployment. Okay, let's talk about speakers. Why speakers are output devices to produce sounds. Okay, of course, obviously, this is done with a DAC. That the digital data is first passed through the DAC, and then it is changed to electric current. Then it's passed through the amplifier, and then it creates a large enough sound to drive to a loudspeaker, etc., etc. Right now, you can see this is the binary back to DAC. DAC gives the amplifier, and it goes to the speaker. Now, let's talk about the uses of speakers. They are used in all phones. They are built in most computers. Output sounds for multimedia presentations. Helps visually impaired people. Okay, especially when you talk about speech generated softwares. Play downloaded sounds files. The next one is the advantages is the sound amplified speakers can be much louder than the original sound. Okay, which makes it easier for people to listen. Okay, everyone in the conference, for example, can hear the output from a computer. It can create an atmosphere when making a good atmosphere when you're making a presentation, because people can actually hear you from far. Okay, then they can help visually impaired people as discussed. Right, it's a very simple technology. Okay, speaker output can be disturbing to others, especially in an office environment. To get high quality sound, the required speaker can be quite expensive, right? Especially if you're looking for a bass speakers. Speaker can take up a lot of the desk space because you have to buy them and put on your table, right? I think the last one is the actuators. Let's talk about them. Now, actuators is used to control devices. Now, when a computer is used to control devices, such as a conveyor belt or a valve, it is necessary to use what we call an actuator. For example, a start and stop conveyor belt to open and close the valve. Now, these actuators is a mechanical or electromechanical device, such as a relay or a solenoid or a motor. Okay, what this simply means is it helps in movement. Okay, now actuators can be used to control motors, pumps, switches, buzzers, etc., etc. They allow a computer to control physical devices that normally require analog input. Okay, now let's talk about the advantage of these actuators. They allow remote operations of many devices. Okay, remote operations of many devices. For example, pumping a nuclear reactor where remote operation is a big safety factor. They are relatively inexpensive devices. They're not quite expensive because it's easier to build up. Okay, now their disadvantage is that there are additional devices in the software that could go wrong, especially if you're conveying that device signal to the actuator that you've built and it's not actually responding. Because they are usually analog devices, computer signals needs to be converted. Remember, these are analog devices, right? Because you're conveying the signals to them to actually carry out an action. Okay, so the computer signals need to be converted using what we call a DAC, digital analog converter, to enable the computer to control these actuators. Okay, so that's all about output devices. We've talked about we started with the monitor screens, and then from the monitor screens, we talked about the CRT, the LCDs, the LEDs. Okay, and then we moved over to printers. So touch screens, we'll talk about touch screens as the output devices. We'll talk about touch screens as an output devices, which is based on the previously input. And then we'll talk about printers, which is the inkjet, the laser jet, then the dot matrix, and then we'll talk about the 3D inkjet printers. And then we moved over to the plotters, right? That makes it of either a pen or a pen, pencil to actually draw on it, right? And another beauty about the plotter is or a marker, right? Is that it can draw not just on A4, but it could be used to draw on aluminium, cardboard, or anything, plastic, right? Steel, wood to draw on it. Okay, and we talked about the 3D printers, which are used to produce solid objects that actually work. A prototype, whatever you can imagine, it produces it, and this is done by a software called the computer aided design, which is now sent to the 3D printer to get this done. And we've looked at the advantages of how it can be applied in so many industries, for the hospitals, for the medical manufacturings, etc., etc. And then we looked at how to create it, and then we looked at its advantages, where we talked about the fact that it could be in the wrong hands and they can use it to produce something dangerous or illegal. And we look at the drawback is people can actually use it to make items of things that they don't have authorization for. Okay, and we also look the fact that if it's been applied to other technologies, people might actually lose their job. And then we talked about speakers, and we talked about digital to analog converter, where it is now changed to electric current. And then we talked about the uses that it helps to amplify our voices. And we talked about actuators, which is more like a mechanical device that helps to control, right? So and then we talked about that it's not expensive to build, and as much as possible, whenever this is we talked about disadvantage, where we talked about that we could have issues when it's not responsive. What do we mean is simply if the computer is not able to send the signals to it, and most of the time it may not be able to carry out that action as much as possible. Okay, that means yes, this is an additional software in the system that could go wrong. We talked about that. So thank you very much, and I'll see you when we're talking about the chapter 3. Okay, bye bye.